Well, Ukraine says Russia has attacked civilian targets in the southern city of Odesa, killing at least 3 people and wounding more than a dozen others. Ukrainian police said the overnight attack damaged a business center, shops, and a residential building in the city center. The regional administration says 4 Russian missiles were launched from a ship in the Black Sea. 3 of them were intercepted before hitting their target in Odesa. So for the latest from Ukraine, over to our correspondent, Nick Connolly in Kyiv. Nick, tell us more about these attacks on Odesa.
So we've heard from the authorities there that the remaining people who were injured in this attack are not believed to be in any critical medical situation. They're receiving treatment, but nothing is seemingly threatening their lives at this point. I think this really just underlines how vulnerable Odesa is on the Black Sea coast there. Those Russian boats out in the Black Sea pretty much constantly. And as the experts say, it's a lot harder to protect Odesa because basically all the radars, all the air defense systems are land-based. And so they basically aren't between Odesa and these Russian ships. Interestingly, there was some commentary just now from one of President Zelensky's top officials saying that in every one of those Russian cruise missiles, there were up to 40 foreign components. The real message here from Kiev is that these sanctions aren't being implemented as they should and that Russia is still capable of producing new weapons of this kind. So real pressure now from Kiev to make sure that Western countries do their best to make sure that Russia's supply of these missiles really dries out.
Nick, I'd also like to ask you about the Ukrainian counteroffensive. We have NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg reporting that Ukraine is making progress. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, this is really difficult to get an objective kind of analysis for. Obviously, both sides keeping very quiet. The Ukrainians even trying to kind of impose an almost full blanket ban on coverage and on military people giving interviews. That has kind of crumbled in recent days. They basically realized that in the presence of a kind of information vacuum, these Russian narratives were being increasingly heard here in Ukraine. So they are giving some details, but it does seem like a village or two at a time. Lots of Western technology being used, some being destroyed or at least needing repair. But that was always expected. If you're going into a fence, you are a lot more vulnerable than if you're just trying to defend what you still hold on to. I think the bigger question here is, are we going to see one big kind of leap, one real push, or is this going to be a tactics of kind of lots of small mosquito bites trying to weaken Russia's logistics, take enough people out, take enough people prisoner that Russia's army at some point might just collapse under the weight of those attacks? I think that question hasn't really been answered yet, but there is a sense that this is now fully underway. Ukraine still has more in the way of those Western supplies to use and to put on the battlefield, but I think we're not really going to have a clear sense of the success of this for some time to come.
Thank you so much, as always, for those updates. That's our correspondent, Nick Connolly in Kyiv.